What is going on, YouTube? I am Germ here. Today I wanted to talk a little bit about the LCS format. Kind of talking about the LCS format for the summer, but kind of talking about the whole LCS format for the entire year. Obviously they tried out this new thing this year. It's all about we want to make Spring Split matter, so they decided to make the records last for the whole season rather than just, being a Spring Split, having your records reset going into summer. And since the records matter the whole year, your Spring Split records are going to carry over into summer. It's actually going to matter. It's still going to affect you. All these things. But, now that we've actually seen how it plays out, I came into the season with an open mind. I actually was a little bit excited for it. I was like, oh yeah, it sounds cool. I mean, I wish Spring Split mattered more. It never really has. Hopefully this will be able to change things. But now that we have just like 5 games left in the season, we have like a week and a half left in the season, I think we can all start to make more evaluations and start forming more opinions and talking about whether or not we want it to continue like this, whether it's better, worse, whatever, going into the future. That's what we're going to be doing today. Definitely drop a like if you guys do enjoy this video. I'd appreciate it so much. Subscribe to stay up to date on all my latest content. Consider checking out my Patreon, patreon.com/IamGerm. With that being said, here we go. So, the LCS format, again, changed this offseason. Big, long records. Another thing is that 8 teams make the playoffs in the summer. This is something they did last year. I thought it was COVID related. They decided to bring it back. 6 teams in the spring make playoffs, 8 teams in the summer. And obviously you guys can see by the title, I think this sucks. I think it sucks for so many reasons. I think a lot of people think this sucks. I think it is very just bad. And when I look over in the LEC, I'm jealous. I prefer the LEC format. I like what they have going on in terms of 6 teams making playoffs, in terms of records resetting in the spring. And there's actually an interesting point behind all this that I wanted you guys to hear about. So when you actually take a look at the win-loss records of teams in the summer, this is just the teams in the summer. Take a look at these standings. We have 100 Thieves as the top team at 16-6, and you'll see here in the LCS standings overall, we have 100 Thieves in first. In second, we have Evil Geniuses 15-7, TSM right behind them. Next 2 teams here, we have TSM and Evil Geniuses. They're flip-flopped, but at the end of the day, I don't think there's a huge difference between being second and third. We'll see who ends up actually being second, who actually ends up being third. I don't know exactly how it's going to play out. And also, I don't really remember how the bracket works either, so maybe there's like second gets a way easier road or whatever, but in a double elimination bracket where you're going to have to roll through the whole playoffs anyway, there shouldn't be that big of a difference, maybe second and third, but those 2 teams are still there. 4th and 5th, we have Cloud9 and Team Liquid both tied at 12-10, and then here, conveniently, we actually have Cloud9 and Team Liquid, very, very close to each other. Cloud9 is tied with Evil Geniuses right now for 3rd, but they are right next to each other. They're just a single game apart. So again, their Cloud9 is actually a game ahead of them. If it was just summer, they'd be tied. So a slight difference, but for the most part, they're still right there. Then towards the bottom half of the league, we actually have some changes. We have Immortals, Golden Guardians, Dignitas. And then here we have Dignitas, Immortals, FlyQuest, Golden Guardians. So actually some of these teams got jumbled up a little bit, but the only thing that should really matter is who actually makes the playoffs. And in the full split put together, the 2 teams not making the playoffs are Golden Guardians, at least as of right now, are Golden Guardians and CLG. And then in the scenario, if we just had the summer records, it would be CLG and FlyQuest. So that is probably the biggest change that has been made, is FlyQuest not making the playoffs, but in actuality, they are a game safe of making the playoffs. Who knows if Golden Guardians is going to catch them or whatever. But the interesting thing here is that the point of these changes was to make Spring Split matter more, which would mean if you had a good Spring Split, it should carry over, and the Summer Split standings, should be a little bit different than the Spring Split standings, right? But that is not what's happening. When you take a look at just the isolated Summer Split win-loss records, it looks very, very similar to the current standings in the LCS. And there's a couple reasons for that. One, that there's more games in the summer. So you have 18 games. Those 18 games, we already have so few games. So when you get, 50% more games in the summer as opposed to the spring, it's going to weigh heavily on the standing. So it's kind of it doesn't even make sense. It's like competing with itself there. It's like, we want Spring Split to matter, but actually we're going to have 50% more games in the summer and it's going to overtake your spring rankings. And again, these are the stats with still 5 games left to play in the summer. So as these 5 games play out in the summer, these standings are going to look more and more like the summer split, which is absolutely crazy. It's going to literally, in the end, it's going to make Spring Split not matter at all. Also, the one thing it could do is really affect the playoffs. The playoff teams could change a lot. Maybe the teams at the top are going to be at the top, whether it's spring, summer, whether it's all put together. Who knows? I don't know exactly how it would work out, but the playoff teams should shuffle. And even right now, we do see the bottom teams kind of mixing and matching around. But 8 teams make the playoffs. Why do 8 teams make the playoffs? That makes it matter so much less. That makes even the opportunity for there to be swaps and for teams to be knocked out, for teams that had a good spring to be sneaking in despite having bad summers, teams with good summers despite bad springs having to fight up. It takes away so much of that, so much of the excitement, the entertainment, the interesting value of that when 8 teams, 80% of the league makes the playoffs. Also, it makes making the playoffs so insignificant. I mean, at that point, who even cares who makes the playoffs? Everybody makes the playoffs, so it's not even like a good goal to shoot for. Right now it's like Golden Guardians and CLG are like, oh man, I hope we can still make the playoffs, and like that's it. And that's not interesting. That's not a good storyline. That's not anything that anyone cares about. And again, it didn't make Spring Split more interesting. It didn't make Spring Split matter more. The only thing we've done is make the standings way more confusing. There's just so many games to look at right now, so you don't even have anything to compare this to historically. We know what a good record looks like in a single split, but now there's like 50 games or something. Those records are harder to digest. They're more confusing. It's taken into account a Spring Split that was so long ago, it doesn't even matter, and it's just throwing those games in randomly. I think this format is so stupid, and I see the format over in the LEC again. I think it's going very, very well. The races are tight for the playoffs. It's interesting. You can look at the standings. You can tell who your strong teams are in the summer. You can tell who's doing well. You can tell who the favorites are headed into the playoffs, headed into the World Championships, all of that. And I just think it makes way more sense. Now, I am all for trying out new things, trying out new formats, seeing what works, seeing what doesn't. I definitely think that after last season, we should have done away with 8 teams in the playoffs. Again, it was a fine idea. COVID messed a lot of things up. If we needed to do it, whatever. 8 teams in the playoffs sucks. It's a terrible idea. Also, I think this season-long format sucks. I'm all for the idea of making Spring Split matter or trying to make it matter or whatever. Maybe it's impossible. I don't know, because we still haven't been able to figure out a way, but I would be down if there was a good way. And I'm down for trying ideas. Kudos to the LCS for at least trying. It's cool to see different things, but man, I think this was a massive failure. I think this was a bad format. I think overall this has been much less interesting. It also has not met their goals at all, and I hope it is done away with for the next season because, again, I don't think it's really changed anything. I think it's been more confusing. At the least, it's done nothing. At the most, it's just kind of dumb and makes things less interesting. I hope they make changes. I think we should go back to 16 playoffs, maybe even just go back to having the different records and the different splits and kind of going from there and trying different ways to make Spring Split matter more because this definitely didn't work. I hate this new format. It seems like other people hate it too, but I just need to get on here and rant for a little bit. Definitely drop a like if you guys did enjoy this video. I'd appreciate it so much. Leave a comment down below. What do you think about this LCS format? Do you think there's been anything good about it? Do you think it's been good, or do you think it sucked? I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts and opinions. Subscribe, stay updated on the latest content. Consider checking out my Patreon, patreon.com/IamGerm. Hopefully catch you guys in the next one. But until then, peace!